San Diego, California, this is the Frug Life podcast, the show that teaches you how to save, invest, and earn money. Here's the host, Mr. Frugal himself, Ricky Hershey.
Welcome to the Frug Life. Recently, I did an interesting experiment, and it's one I think you should do too. So I have looked at all of my retirement and stock holdings and compiled them into a single spreadsheet. And this, unfortunately, was a lot of work because I have many brokerages and many retirement accounts, and it's a lesson in that I probably should roll them all together into one account so that this is a lot easier to track, because looking at all of my investments in a single place helped me realize a few things. I'll get into those in just a second. And this is just all of my holdings within, Charles Schwab, within Fidelity, within all the other accounts I use. So I got all of my holdings and I've aggregated them all together. And now I'm going to talk about some of my top holdings. And specifically, the question comes from my coworker, Mario. Shout out to Mario. And his question basically was, what are my top 3 stocks that I hold? So we'll answer that question and many more. So now I have this spreadsheet in front of me, and my highest holding at almost 16% is a target date fund. So that's not too surprising and not too unusual. As you know, a target date fund is a fund with a mixture of things in it. So it's well diversified in and of itself. And it has the idea of the target date fund is that it gradually changes its asset allocation from equities generally and into more bonds as time goes on and you approach that target date. So if you were to pick just a single investment, your target date fund, a target date fund might be a good choice. Ramit Sethi likes them. Now, of course, this isn't financial advice. This isn't investment advice. I'm just a guy with a podcast on the internet. Now, some people don't like target date funds due to fees, I guess, and some of the way that they might not track the performance of the stock market overall because their allocation changes. I don't know. There's some people that complain about it. I think in general, it's fine. So the next holding I have, the next largest holding at almost 10%, is a total stock market index fund, a Schwab one. So it looks like a mutual fund. So I actually learned another thing as I did this exercise. I learned a few things, so it was a good exercise. I noticed I had lots of mutual funds. I noticed I had lots of ETFs. And then I noticed I had a lot of some other third thing that I was having trouble figuring out what it is, right? Because it didn't have an ETF ticker. It didn't have a mutual fund ticker, which mutual funds generally have a ticker. It had a number that looked like a CUSIP to me, or like this identifying number for tradable securities. But when I Googled it, I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't find that number. So if it wasn't a mutual fund and it wasn't an ETF, what is this thing? And so the answer was a collective trust. In some retirement accounts, there are things called collective trusts, collective investment trusts. So they kind of behave like mutual funds. They often have lower fees, but they have less disclosure requirements. And these accounts are apparently only available to retirement plans. And I think I'm going to make a whole nother episode about these later because it's kind of interesting. There was this whole other investment that I previously was unaware of. See, even Mr. Frug learns things all the time. So my third holding is actually the biggest surprise to me. It's my employer stock. And perhaps it shouldn't have been such a big surprise to me because a good deal of my compensation comes in the form of restricted stock units. Those restricted stock units vest, and then I have stock that I can sell. Just to be clear on the number I was including here, I was only looking at the portion that I actually control, the vested portion, and wasn't looking at the unvested portion. So that's interesting. It's something that I should consider. Remember, if you are employed by an organization, having a lot of your assets also tied to that organization is potentially not the most prudent financial decision. So let me just leave that word of caution for now. Next, I had some other, I don't even know what this is, American Fund's New Perspective Fund, Class R6. So it just looks like a global large cap growth stock. Well, not stock, mutual fund, I think. All right, at number 5, at about 5%, I have an S&P 500 index fund. So finally the S&P 500 is showing up. Number 6, I have another target date fund. Now, so this is because I've had more than one retirement plan over time. I've had, different work plans. And so now I have multiple target date funds with the same target date. And I have another S&P 500 index fund and another total market mutual fund. Actually, it's one that you might know. It's VT Stacks. So VT Stacks is number 7, I think, on my list. I have a small cap fund. I have a REIT. I have another collective trust that I'm not sure what it is offhand. I guess I should do better at organizing this. So I've listed, I'm already down to like number 11, number 12, and there's only been one stock on here so far, one individual stock, I should say. And actually it goes down quite a bit further until we finally get an individual stock. And actually all of these I think have been mutual funds or collective trusts up to this point, or like a REIT or something like that. So then the next actual tradable security I think is an ETF, and it's VXUS, which is the Vanguard Total International Stock Index Fund ETF. So I guess you can see I don't actually hold many individual stocks, or those individual stocks are at least not very material to my overall net worth. The next stock I have, the next largest stock holding I have, is Coca-Cola, KOKE specifically. There's actually more than one Coca-Cola stock. I'm not sure if this one is the actual stock or the distributor stock. So number 1 stock is my employer, Axos. Number 2 is Coke. The number 3, and we have to jump down a little bit further to get to this. My number 3 stock as a percent of my total portfolio, and is almost all the way down to like number 40, is AT&T. I think I bought that because it had like a nice attractive dividend yield. Now, should you buy stocks because they have dividend yields? That's a good question, and one I think I need to tackle another day. There are definitely people on Twitter that love dividend stocks. There's a lot of other people that say dividends are a dispreferred method of returning capital. And you can kind of not argue with that, right? It's less tax efficient than a growth stock. But let's tackle that idea later. I think I also subsequently sold this position in AT&T. Not to go on too much of a tangent, but right now it's approaching the end of the year. And so if you want to do tax loss harvesting, it might be a good time to do so, which is why I sold the stock. Maybe at some point in the future, I will look at buying it again. There is something that's kind of fun with seeing that dividend appear in your account, but who knows? We'll see. Also, in doing this tax loss harvesting exercise, I can see that my ability to pick individual stocks is a little hit or miss. And actually looking at some of the stock selections I've made, I can see that in many cases I purchased at a favorable price, and then the price went up from that point. The problem with some of them is that I didn't sell them at any point, and that now they've taken a nosedive and they're doing much worse than they were previously. So I suppose that's one thing to keep in mind if you're trying to buy individual stocks or trade. You have to time the market not just once, but twice, when you purchase the security and when you sell it. So even though I was doing a good job at buying things at good prices, I didn't do the best job selling them at good prices. But that's okay. I will sell them now, collect my tax losses, and then potentially buy them again later after the holding period is over. Just to be clear, you can't just sell something, collect a loss, and rebuy it right away. There's a number of days you have to wait. When you sell a security at a loss and then rebuy it at the same time, it's called a wash sale, and you cannot deduct those losses. The wash period is 30 days prior to the sale of the stock and 30 days after. But also, this is not tax advice either, in case you forgot. All right, let's take a quick break. All right, welcome back. I just wanted to leave a few more comments with you. One thing that I excluded from my analysis was all of my cryptocurrency holdings. I suppose I could have tried to add them in here. Overall, the amount of crypto I hold isn't that significant, but perhaps I will try this again at some point and include them. And the next time I do this, hopefully it will be a lot easier because hopefully I have combined some of my different accounts together. Because what I'm doing now is a lot. And in theory, I should probably be tracking my overall asset allocation more frequently than I have been. Presently, I look at each retirement account as its own kind of portfolio. I make sure that I have, a well-diversified portfolio in my Fidelity account and my Charles Schwab account, etc. But what I really should be doing is just looking at my overall portfolio and making sure it works in aggregate. Now, since I'm, making sure each part is reasonable, it stands to reason that the entire whole will be reasonable as well. But, with investments, it's really the whole that counts and not the individual parts. All right. Thanks again, Mario, for that idea for a show. If you have an idea for a show, let me know and I will try to make it happen. Thank you for listening to this week's episode, or really I should say this month's episode of the show, because the show is being released monthly in case you didn't notice. So thanks for listening. Have a great month. And as always, stay frugal.